It's that time of the month again where we answer Overwatch questions from Reddit. Cue the intro. Top upvoted questions of October 2023. First one, shouldn't you ping enemies a lot more, even when they're obvious? As a former League scrub, I believe they mean League of Legends, map awareness and pinging enemy locations were a big thing. Now I play Overwatch and I rarely see my teammates ping Cassidy when he ults. My awareness is not unlimited. When people are fighting isolated, I cannot necessarily see against who, where, or how many. It makes it hard for me to react and help them, and it might have me killed even if I try. When there are flight heroes, I don't necessarily see them out in the open either because I'm forced on enemies on the ground and then my sound cues might not be the same as your position. Therefore, I always ping enemies that are obvious, also mid-duel because I think it might help others, but other players do not do it as much and I cannot change that. I feel like it really halts me. Am I pinging too much? Or are others not pinging enough? Diamond support, no idea about other roles. Well, number one, absolutely, you should be pinging enemies a lot more to answer your question. You are doing just fine. Keep on pinging, don't stop. I think one of the reasons why a lot of people aren't pinging is because number one, they're not used to it. Believe it or not, I would argue and say half the Overwatch population played Overwatch 1 and it's still not built into them to ping yet. Myself included, I'm a long time Overwatch player and I still forget to ping in a lot of cases. Yeah, absolutely keep pinging, number one. Number two, I have a clip right here that I'm going to show you where pinging actually allowed me to get a kill. Oh my god, Echo. Bro, that's where ping was super handy. I can't see through these cherry blossoms or these fucking autumn trees, but I pinged and I watched the icon through the thing. Now you can see the ping actually sort of tracks people for a few seconds before they break line of sight, and if it's through like hard to see foliage like that tree, I'm able to kill them through it. And teammates responding to your ping, that's not really on you. The information is available for them to interpret it if it's there, but having more information on the screen is not a bad thing. Obviously, some people can get overloaded, but a lot of times, a lot of people often ignore pings, but as long as they're there, people can opt in and use that information as they please when they're ready for it. So don't stop pinging, keep it up. And a couple of other ping tips is that when you ping low HP targets, it actually makes a different sound when they're half health and a different sound when they're like a quarter HP or their critical health. There's also a different icon that changes as well. If you ping them off screen, somebody on your team will be able to see it on the edges of your UI and it'll be like yellow health and a different sound. People haven't really bought into it or know everything about the ping system. It's a little confusing. I still have a video I'm working on that'll explain the system more in depth, but keep on pinging. Another ping tip is when you die, immediately press the ping button as well because it'll automatically ping your target's last seen location, which can give a lot of information. So yeah, you should be pinging more. We have to spread the message a bit more, so good post. Next most upvoted question was, can anyone explain Super's Reinhardt to me? For context, I'm a Rein main. I'm now in GM5, peak GM4. I don't really watch the Twitch stream, but I saw a VOD of Super stream. If you guys don't know Super, he's a former pro Overwatch League tank player. He's a big content creator now. He uploaded a video on YouTube, decided to watch it. I don't know how to write it down. Okay, so he says Super's obviously one of the best Rein and tanks in the world, but after watching his gameplay, he just doesn't seem to do much. What he seems to be doing is standing in front of the line, swinging occasionally at nothing and holding shield up. Now, of course, that's a simplification of what he's actually doing, but before watching a replay of the best Rein, I guess I was expecting him to do more. Like, I was expecting him to hit a 5-man shatter, pin one of the enemy's back lines, and then draw the aggro of the entire enemy team, or just anything along that line. Guess what I'm trying to say is, instead of doing anything crazy, Super seems to just exist, and somehow that works for him because he often dominates the games he's playing in. I'm not saying his gameplay is as one of the best Reins of the world is bad or underwhelming or anything, but I just want to understand how he is not doing anything crazy, but instead just kind of exists and it seems to work. An explanation would be very much appreciated. Have a good day. There's a long edit here, but let me give my thoughts on Reinhardt gameplay in 2023. Rein now in the 5v5 context is a lot more opportunistic. Unless you're running a full Brawl Lucio comp, you still have to take what the enemy team gives you. If they're running like a Bastion or they have a Discord orb, you have to hold your shield and seemingly just stand there and hold your ground, take natural cover, and it'll oftentimes be a lot of downtime where you're doing nothing. And that's how the Rein battles have kind of evolved, right? You have to take, if you like engage too early, you don't take the right opportunities, you absolutely blow up instantly with all this damage that's coming out now as well. If the BAP windows, the Bastion shoots you, or the Mei like sees you walking too far forward when your team isn't ready, they wall you up and you just get punished instantly. So when you're watching Super, he's a very high, one of the best players in the world. His ranked games are also of relative skill. He is also playing against pretty skilled enemies as well, right? And you can't just obviously dominate and hit a 5-man shatter every single time and go for highlight plays. When you watch a montage, you just take little bits of like long, 30, like 50, 100 games, you take the best clips out of them. But when you watch a standard game of Rein, more often than not, standing there and, taking what the enemy team gives you is how you play it correctly. So that's basically the easiest explanation. A lot of people are expecting like just pure domination every time, but that's just simply not true, especially for a hero like Rein. They expect to just always go in, swing like crazy, like it's Rein Zarya in Overwatch 1, but that's just not the way it's evolved. And unfortunately, that's probably one of the biggest complaints. A lot of people miss the old Rein Zarya because it gave the Reinhardt a lot more freedom as an off tank to kind of enable the Rein. But now if Rein's the solo tank, it can be really boring in a lot of cases because there's a lot of on periods and off periods, unless you're just charging in and inting, which could work if you're, if the enemy team has no answer for you, but you have to be very careful when playing Rein, and that's just how the game has gone. Next question. I've lost so many games because of Mercy one tricks. Oh boy. I'm a Masters 1 DPS and Masters 4 tank, and I still see at least one Mercy one trick per session, and it's almost always a loss. It's a very consistent thing, and I'd like some help trying to work around it. There are so many scenarios where my team is trying to play dive or brawl, and the Mercy is adding nothing to the team whatsoever. They die first the most. Lucio is simply out of the hero pool when we have a Mercy. The only thing they know how to swap to, even if they swap, that's a big if, is Moira. Many of these Mercies have either been boosted by a duo or have played so much that they eventually end up in Masters. It's so obvious by either profile statistics or just how they play the game when playing other characters, any other character. When a character can be played so passively and with low game sense / mechanics, bracket, not saying all Mercy players are bad at every character, close bracket, there are going to be some one tricks that end up in high elo. When that happens and they need to switch, it ends up bringing the entire team down. I would love to hear some personal anecdotal tips for the issue. Okay. Let's unpack this. First of all, you're not losing the game because of a Mercy one trick. In fact, if that were the case, then Mercy players would have what, like a 5-10%, not even a 0% win rate in all these compositions. That's just simply not true. Okay, you're just having like maybe a few bad experiences where you're trying to run a composition, Mercy doesn't fit that, but there's plenty of comps that you can play. You're trying to run dive or brawl, you can actually run like Mercy Echo or Mercy Echo dive, like a variant of it, or you run Mercy in a poke comp. Maybe not so much in the brawl meta, but like all in all, Mercy players are just going to play Mercy, and you feel like you don't have to like play around them. You just, at the end of the day, you focus on your own game. I'm gonna be honest, you're around Masters 1 and Masters 4. I actually think, this is just like my armchair psychology, I think high plat to Masters players focus on team composition way more. Actually, I think Diamond is the biggest culprit, because like they're at that phase where like they know a lot of the game, but at the end of the day they actually don't. And some people are really into it with like proper compositions, and the other half isn't. I'm not saying Diamond players are bad by any means. That's super gatekeeping, don't get me wrong, but the execution of a proper composition is often like met with a lot of errors in the execution of an ideal comp, because they see the top Overwatch League, Overwatch World Cup players execute it. I wouldn't worry so much about trying to fit the perfect brawl and then getting angry because there's a Mercy one trick on your team. You just have to play your own game, and you'd be surprised how much you can win in Overwatch by simply focusing on yourself and punishing enemy mistakes, because enemies are making so many mistakes that you can capitalize on more so than you executing an offensive play. When people think brawl or dive, they're always thinking offense, how do we synergize together to do offense? But just take a step back and then just look for enemies' positional errors or mistakes on their macro and punish that, and you just win solo queue games. That's why every hero has been one trick to top 500, because we're playing ranked play. We're not playing coordinated composition, coordinated 5-stack, high Overwatch League, Overwatch Contenders games. We're playing ranked, where everyone's on their own. Half people are never in voice on your team and the enemy team. Do you really think they're executing a perfect comp? No. Punish the enemies. Mercy players are going to play Mercy, and if anything, you just let the Mercy enable one of your DPS and you carry. There's going to be games where you as your, as a DPS, you said your Masters 1 DPS. How often would you love a Mercy pocket if you're playing Ashe or a flying hero? And then the enemy team's like, oh my god, they have a Pharah Mercy or they have X with the pocket. Like, this is so hard to beat. Mercy one tricks are not causing you to lose the games. Your own head is causing you to lose games because you're tilted because you have a Mercy on your team, when Mercy is perfectly fine of winning in a ranked environment. And then you're also, second part of this Reddit part, you said many of these Mercy players have been boosted by a duel, or they played so much they eventually end up in Masters. Do you think people can accidentally end up in Masters? Sure, Mercy may be a bit easier to end up in Masters if you play a lot of games, but you still need to have like the correct decision making to just end up in Masters. No one accidentally ends up in Masters. You know what I mean? There's people who've been stuck in silver, gold, bronze, plat for 7 years, and they're not magically Masters. Mercy players, excuse me. There's Mercy players that have been in that elo and they've like been up and down in silver, gold for 7 years, and they've never accidentally ended up in Masters. That's just simply not true. It's just a lot of copium going on here, but I'm trying to offer some real advice. Play your own game and punish enemy mistakes, and work with your Mercy player. Have your DPS enabled, and you'll find that you can win. Don't worry about it. Winston Defense is throwing. So I played Winston on Numbani defense, and right out the gate, my Mercy and my Cassidy said, bro, you're throwing. Why are you playing Winston on defense? I was like, huh? I've never heard that before. We won, by the way, and we were fine. We won 3-1. I always play Winston on defense. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, and me being a girl didn't help trying to understand because they started yelling at me to swap to Diva. Can someone please explain? I'm in Plat 2. Yeah, ignore them. Winston's fantastic and fine on defense. Maybe some heroes can stand their ground a little bit more, like and be a bit sturdier on high ground, but Winston's not bad on defense, especially because you said it was, what map did you play? Numbani? Numbani is a lot of high ground control, especially first point. You can drop down main when you're starting up top and then jump back up when you're in trouble and just isolate their backline. Absolutely fine. Just ignore the haters. These are just people who just expect like Orisa or very easy brawl tanks or someone with a shield, so that they know, because that's the only way they know how to play the game. But ignore them. It's not throwing. Next question. Can someone please just tell me what y'all are saying? I've only been playing Overwatch 2 for 2 to 3 months. I don't play comp, and quite frankly, I don't know the hierarchy of that either. I've gathered that diff means to swap, but I have no idea what any other jargon y'all are using means. What's peel? What's dive? Someone give me a master reference sheet. I'm confused. I'm trying to engage in conversation and learn and understand things, but I am very head empty. Okay, to answer your 3 questions, what does diff mean? I think diff originated, at least for my knowledge, gamer slang diff is short for difference, which implies a difference in skill. So if you say tank diff, like GG's we lose because tank diff, it means the enemy team's tank had a higher skill difference and a better skill difference compared to the team that lost its tank. That means, if that makes any sense. So people who like to type in all chat and say that when it's not themselves, they're just trying to like deflect blame. Like if your Genji player says GG we lose, tank diff means your, I don't know, Winston got diffed by the enemy, Ramatra, because the Ramatra had a higher skill difference compared to your tank. Just, that's what diff means. It doesn't mean to swap. It's just a way for people to flame others or their own team. On the flip side, if you're like a better Ana player or support player and you played a better game, at least on the scoreboard compared to the enemy Ana, you just like to stroke your own fat cock, you just say, yeah, Ana diff in all chat, as in you played a better Ana than the enemy Ana. Just don't worry about it. These are all chatting chattersons that just like to flex their gamer boner, so don't worry about that. The next thing that you said was, what's peel? Peel is a term to peel back and assist someone. Actually, in short, we'll just say peeling is helping someone else, whether that's to use any resources, healing, or abilities. For example, if you are getting jumped, if you're a support player and you're getting, jumped by a Genji or a Tracer, for example, you can ask for your diva on your team to peel for you. And that means your diva peels back, kind of like a banana peels back, turns around and uses her resources, which is defense matrix, for you to help you. Or if you're getting jumped by the Genji or Tracer, you ask your other support to please peel for me. So you ask your Brig or your Mercy to come throw some healing resources onto you to assist you to peel the enemy players off of you. The last one you mentioned was, what's dive? Dive is one of the 3 main core compositions you can build in Overwatch. The 3 comps are dive, poke, and brawl. And there's hybrids of all 3 and small variations, but we can just simplify them to 3 archetypes. So dive generally is generally defined with high mobility. So think Winston, Ball, Doomfist, Tracer, Sombra, even the flyers, like you can play Pharah dive, Echo dive, something with really high mobility, often vertical mobility. Brawl is like the all-in, go clump together and move together, often defined with ground-based tanks who are very strong up close and amplified with Lucios. So for example, you run like Lucio Rein Brawl, you play it with Mei, you play it with Reaper, you can play it with Bastion, you kind of all go together and brawl the enemy team. And then poke is like you kind of stand your ground and you poke and you shoot little bits of damage at medium to long ranges before they come in. So you can play like Sigma, the Hanzos, the Baptiste, the Zenyatas. You kind of just plant yourself in a position and you just shoot them as they come towards you. That's the simple version. Hopefully that'll help you out. Next question. Why is the skill to value curve being what it is right now not a bigger issue? Recently, I've been seeing a lot of people share the sentiment that supports are what is ruining the game in these past few seasons. And while I agree that supports are overtuned, I think the problem is a lot deeper within the Overwatch Balance team's philosophy. The skill to value curve. In competitive gaming, one of the most important aspects is the skill to value curve. This curve represents how the skill required to excel with a hero corresponds to their impact on the game. A competitive environment should reward high skill expression, as this drives players to invest time and effort in mastering challenging heroes. However, recently Overwatch 2 has shifted their balance, favoring easier to play heroes. In the recent patches, we've seen a lot of favorability towards Orisa, Bastion, Torb, and Lifeweaver, and even Brig if he seasons back. There are definitely more I'm missing, but you get the point. This has created a situation where high-skill heroes are struggling to find their place in the game. Most, if not all, the easy, low-skill heroes are getting buffed, and it comes with the higher-skill hero getting easily shut down more frequently. Honestly, I think this shift may ultimately limit the diversity of heroes and strategies in comp play. It's one of the reasons tank is bad, because you can't hard carry for more than 2 seconds without getting counterpicked, making you either play perfectly or switch. I'd like to know others' POV on this, etc., etc. Basically, they're saying the most impressive heroes in this ranks are Moiras, Bastions, and Torbs. Okay, I don't think there's anything wrong in the game where you have lower skill floor heroes. Think, yeah, Moiras, Bastions, where it's very simple, or Reapers, to simply play the hero and generate a lot of value. And there's not absolutely... I also agree that heroes with high skill expression should be rewarded more, which has actually been the case in the past, like you said, not so much lately, with Tracer, you know, high mobility, very squishy HP pools. You have to be really smart with your movement and very mechanically skilled. The more skilled you are in Lucio is another example. The more skilled you are in Tracer, the more you're rewarded. But if you're not skilled with Tracer, you can easily tell like a bad Tracer in Silver, right? Versus like a Moira player, there's not that many buttons to press. The biggest skill expression is really just like the fade jumping. Other than that, you basically just hold your beams down and just all decision making and not so much mechanics. It is an issue. You say, why is it not a bigger issue? It is an issue, and I don't know how to answer this. Now, I actually agree with you that we should talk about it a little bit more. There are some heroes that are like easier to play and are generating way too much value in proportion to their skill to value curve. Some of the examples you listed are heroes like, I would say Orisa. You could say Orisa, but I think Orisa, there is some finesse on cycling your cooldowns and hitting consistent spears. But it does boil down to, you know, how you macro the forward and back. If that's a general tank skill, it's not like if you play Orisa, you'll magically hit GM1. There's plenty of like gold Orisas who've been in gold forever. Same with Bastion, they're opportunistic, and Torb. Torb does require a lot more skill than you think, right? The turret is the simple version of it, the skill to value curve, which is why they actually did address that. They lowered the damage from the turret and added more power to his actual aiming part of his kit, which is, you know, the shotgun and the primary fire. Lifeweaver, actually there's a lot of buttons on Lifeweaver that I actually think Lifeweaver is a bit is easy-ish, but like not as easy as you think. So some of the ones I would say are very low skill floor, in my opinion, are Moira and Reaper. And I think they have their place. Moira doesn't feel overpowering at high ranks, but she is a very low skill floor hero. So that ratio is actually done pretty well for a hero like her, where she generates more value at lower ranks and she's decent the higher you go, and it all basically comes down to decision making. Same with Reaper and how you close the gap. He's a very simple hero. So the 4 you mentioned, Orisa, Bastion, Torb, Life Weaver, might just need minor tweaks, and same with Brig, but I actually think it's not as bad as you think. When you tune those back, heroes like Genji and Tracer, who are very high skill expression, will shine again. It's not a bigger issue. It's an issue, but not as big at this time. It's actually just like the scaling of damage and a little bit of the heal creep. But I think if you just tune those back, you don't have to, like, if you tune one thing back, you don't have to tune the other thing up, or else you get this like double dynamic where one thing takes one step back, the other takes a step forward, and then they actually, like, relative to each other, are doubled in place, if that makes sense. Like this thing, the previous weak thing just doubled in power because they went up 1, and then the strong low skill floors went back 1. Does that make sense? So right now we just have to tune things slightly back, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more high skill expression heroes being played again, like Genji, Tracer, Winston, believe it or not, like the primal juggles and everything, and Doomfists. Like, we're not too far away. So yeah, it's an issue, but not a giga issue, in my opinion. Okay, I'm going to answer the next couple ones as just a bit of a rapid fire to wrap this week's video up. As someone who's last seriously played during her OP release, how do you play Brig these days? I feel so squishy. Right now, at the highest level, Brig is generally played a bit more situationally. She's fantastic against very high mobility dive compositions. Think Doomfist, Sombra, Tracer, Genji, Winston's. She's there to pack people and just boot people away and be a disruptor. Most high-level players don't play Brig in Brawl too much. Maybe in I've seen like one variation of BAP Brig with Sigma Poke, but that's just to, like, at the high level, to kind of counter a certain dive engagement as kind of like a failsafe. You can, on certain maps, still get away with, consistently poking on Brig and just holding your ground. But generally speaking, if you played her during her OP release, Brig is not the same as her 2018 variant, where she had like 600 or 600 HP under shield, 250 HP, got so much armor. She's over health now, and she's a lot more, plays more of a disruptor role, more so than a brawl tank support. If you feel so squishy, keep your shield up, keep your passive going with whip shots, and heal pack the right people, generally the squishier teammates, and you'll be fine. Does Ashe's gun have a first shot bonus? No, she does not. You can shoot the first shot very quickly and then change into a scope shot. So you can unscope, scope in very quickly for a boom boom. So it can feel like she's doing like a lot of extra damage, but the Ashe player is generally actually shooting 2 shots back to back very quickly. Does comp give anyone else anxiety and nervousness? Yes, this is a very common occurrence. And my general advice, like, I'm not going to tell someone just simply don't be anxious, don't be nervous. That's not very helpful. It's just like, it's in your mind where you have to kind of play a trick in yourself to kind of get over that initial hump, and then it'll feel less anxious. A lot of people feel anxiety because they're scared about their performance and how it would affect their teammates. In a lot of cases, just muting all chat and turning off voice and just relying on pings and focusing on your own game does go a long way. Granted, there are players that, will be like, they're not in voice, and they get frustrated, but don't worry about it. Myself included, like, I'm always in comms and in voice chat, but I don't flame someone for being out of voice. I get it. As long as they're pinging and doing their best, it's fine. And hopefully they're not out of like text chat. They don't hide the chat, because sometimes, like, I know they're out of voice. I can type like I'm trying to do this kind of play, and then they usually hit an acknowledge or something like that. That's fine. But the anxiety and nervousness does stem down to your personal performance. You just have to like play enough that you kind of like get numb to it. At least that's the way I handle it. This is not going to work for everybody. For example, if I started like a new job, I remember when I was younger, I started a new job, there's always that high level anxiety and nervousness because you're afraid of how people perceive you. But after you've worked at that place for like a couple months, years, 2-3 years, it's just another day at work. You don't feel as anxious or nervous anymore. So like I played so many, like thousands of comp games, I don't really feel anything anymore. And another thing with comps that gives people anxiety is they're about to rank up or rank down depending on the card. You just have to treat the game, play it as if that didn't exist. Some people are about to hit their promo and then they get really anxious and nervous and they start playing a lot more passive and scared. I always tell people, just pretend that didn't exist. You got here on your own, and just focus on your own game and don't try to change anything too drastically. Just do it as you've always done it and you'll be just fine. Let the rank take care of itself. Why aren't there more Ramatras? That's a good question. I actually think Ramatra is pretty good right now. He's not a bad hero at all. He has his place. I've given him like I think he's like a low A B+ hero. You can absolutely play him right now. And the meta tanks are just a perception of what players find other streamers play and what they find fun, to be honest with you. Why do high elo players defend further back? This is a very big generalization. That's not always true. It's a bit of a strategy. Some high elo players defend further back depending on where they think the choke points, common choke point fighting places are, and where they can have the strongest positional advantage. For example, let's take Havana first point defense. Some players, if they have the full brawl, they'll try to spawn camp and play that early area because they can at least guarantee almost 3 fights. If they hold up close and they lose, the second fight will take place right around that first turn, and then that's like a really common spot where people play, and then the last fight probably close to the checkpoint. If players opt to not spawn hold Havana first, they'll kind of let them slowly work up because they have a really high ground positional advantage to defend in that area for longer sight lines. So they just play their advantages depending on the map. So it's not always further back, it just depends on the map. Why do people always switch to Reaper to counter Reaper? I've actually never heard of that. I don't think this is always true at all. I don't think this is an always switch. This just might be like a couple of games you've noticed, but it's a little unpredictable. I mean, Reaper is not a bad hero to like mark. I wouldn't say counter the Reaper. A terminology players use is called marking, where like, oh, I'm gonna mark the Reaper, as in you keep an eye. Your job is to deal with them. If I'm marking the ball as Brig, if I'm playing Brig, it means like I almost save most of my cooldowns to just annoy the ball till he gets away from my team. I just sit there, hold whip shot, sit there with my, with Rally and Bash soon. Another couple of heroes to counter Reaper or to, reduce his effectiveness are, believe it or not, Tracer. If you can play a good Tracer, just keeping your distance away. Reaper's always strong up close, so you can mark him where you just kind of follow him around and you just like whittle him down to half so he's forced to wraith out so he gets no value. Flying heroes like Pharah and Echo are fantastic as well. Reaper can do nothing against him. 2 more questions. How do you guys counter Bastion? Being opportunistic and don't like W or full int into him while he's in his configuration cooldown. Once that's up, he's in a vulnerable period. He has a big hitbox and you can dump some cooldowns in and blast him down. How do I counter Sombra now? The new Sombra? Awareness, believe it or not. That's it. It's as simple as that. Sombra is actually not an issue at all in the high ranks right now, unless they're running a full dive comp. Sombra can feel a lot more oppressive in the low ranks because of the virus. If they hit a virus and she shoots a bit more, 200 HP goes just like that, and people are not turning around or responding to that, especially the supports. I'd say the supports have a very high, important role right now to deal with Sombra. Sombra's really only a threat to, I would feel, like Zenyatta, and maybe if they hack the Lucio and no one else is looking at the Lucio, since he gets off the wall and his aura's all shut off for a second and a half, he can get deleted. But other than that, almost all the other supports have a way to counteract it. If anybody gets a semblance of healing while a virus is going, she's basically ineffective and she has to TP out with the translocator. And if you're hyper aware of that, hyper vigilant, if you're a Brig, you pack the person. If you're a Weaver, you just pump a heal shot. If you're a BAP, you press regen burst. If you're an Ana, you throw the nade. You can force a Sombra to translocate out, and since she can't teleport across the map, you can rush to her and punish her, and that's how you counter her. Okay, I think that's it for the Reddit questions. I answered a lot. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Overwatch support with KarQ. Come back every month. Subscribe in the Car Archives. See you next time.